We're going to give folks some time to join in, but we are now live discussing part two of Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. And today I am joined by Adam Sings in the Timber. His pronouns are he, him. And you are an enrolled member of the Crow Nation in Montana. I think that's cool because obviously there's a lot of Crow symbolism. There's a Crow clan specifically within the book. And I'm wondering if, at the end of the book, Rebecca Roanhorse talks about wanting to not just talk about, like, she didn't want the book to feel like it was about a singular Indigenous nation, that she wanted to have themes across the Indigenous international landscape. So I'm wondering if you particularly ethnically identified with any of the themes that were coming in the book. We can talk about that. But you guys can all find Adam on his Instagram, Adam Sings in the Timber. You are a documentary and portrait photographer based in Berkeley, California, and you are making the process ethically and honestly, portraying Indigenous communities throughout art and documentation. So you're doing some really amazing work. So thank you
Thank
for
you.
joining us.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for having me. I've never talked about a book like this before, so I'm excited to see where it's gonna go.
Yeah, so what the thing is, so the SVG book club is about, we do a lot of work to counter the dis and misinformation in the Black digital landscape, and we think a lot about like ethically sourcing our information. And so it's really important that we bring in the people who share the identities that are part of the narrative in the book. It's really easy to take any book and kind of identify it back to like Black race relations in America, but obviously within like a sci-fi Indigenous book, and because of the publisher had actually sent us this book, and I had specifically said that we wanted to get into differently abled, queer identity, Indigenous communities, so we thought it was important to like just kind of bring in people from Indigenous communities. And you are the only male identifying person that we have for this discussion. And I kind of almost should have probably said, I wanted you to do part three. uh, because some of the themes that get into Carrion Crow and the military institution with the eldest son are definitely some interesting themes that I want to discuss. But we're here now, so this is going to be great.
Yeah, no, yeah, no. I wanted to do. I did want to do part three, but like I sent an email. We're actually moving right now, and on Thursday I'm going to Montana, and then right after that I'm going to upstate New York. So I'm like on the road for the next 2 weeks after this,
Yeah,
and so this
we're
was like
making it work.
my little window. Yeah,
Busy, hectic season. Everybody's kind of in transition right now, so I was like, it's gonna work the way it needs to work, and we can still get into some of those themes. Anyway, but I'm just gonna kick off with the syllabus and actually
sure.
pull the quote that's from page 147. So, oh, actually, let me pick up my book. 1 second, y'all. I'm sorry. My copy. All right, so on page 147.
I just printed off the chapter questions from mine, so that's all I have in front of me.
Yeah, oh, no worries. So the quote's actually in the syllabus. It says, "Villain," he mouthed, liking the sound of it, the weight of the word on his bloodied lip. If protecting his crows made him a villain, then a villain he would be. And so the question asked is, do you think respectability politics is a hindrance towards uprising, revolutions, or political movements in general? What does the statement made by Serapio reveal about his moral standpoint regarding his mission? And I thought this was a very
Yeah,
interesting question. Go ahead.
yeah, no, yeah, no, yeah. It was a question I've been thinking about like all morning. I've been thinking about all these questions in the morning, uh, and trying to like put it in perspective of as an Indigenous person, and in the United States specifically. Do you think the respectability politics? I am not a huge fan, I guess, of respectability politics. Like the I'm not saying violence is a way, like I don't think anyway, but like I feel it can be sometimes co-opted or taken over by like, you guys should just be peaceful, and at times the peace is just it can kind of be used against some cultures. Like with Serapio and his family, the crows, because that's his family. Like he grew up with no family except for these birds, and so that's very much, at least it's a different thing, I guess, for Indigenous people because a lot of us have such large, close-knit families. So it was a little sad to see that he doesn't have that. You know, we hear about it
This,
when we look back at Essa and Okoye, like they're a family and they should have been his family, but he's been kind of taken from that. And so, you know, seeing that this is his family, then yeah, I can see how he would totally like fight for his family. It's the only family he knows. And so that stuck with me for a little bit. The whole like that's his family. He's gonna fight for his family, and I totally get that because, you know, I feel like I want to be peaceful with other people who want to do me harm, but at the same time,
do you really?
it's hard.
I don't
Well,
know that
no,
I want to
I
be
mean,
peaceful anymore.
yeah.
Respect.
I guess what I'm saying.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry. I guess what I'm saying is like I know that being peaceful and nice and kind is like what we're supposed to do, but I come from a warring people. Like my people are Plains natives. We went to war. We were surrounded by our enemies. So I know that like in my genetics is like warfare. I'm not a soldier or anything like that, but I know that a lot of people in my family are. So yeah, like I can see how wanting to be nice and kind to get like that kind of respect for peace is something maybe desirable, but at the same time, fighting is what we've done for so long, I think.
It's interesting you say that. First, respectability politics, I don't know that it was necessarily coined as a positive term, right? Respectability
Yeah.
politics was coined by a professor from Harvard, Evelyn Higginbotham, who was talking about the way respectability politics have actually been used to embed racism into the Black community, into the ascent of like the talented 10th or the Black middle class. Like the idea that in order to be respected, we had to live a certain way, and it's not necessarily like a good thing. But I do wonder.
Okay.
It's interesting when you say about like being from the plains and the Crow Nation. I wonder how much specifically carrying Crow is based off of the Crow Nation, because it is kind of suggested as a clan that has some inherent like authority towards like a military presence in them. Like they are the military presence of all the clans.
Yeah.
And
I can.
oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I can talk a little bit about my people and maybe how there is that connection if you'd like me to.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so the English translation of our name is Crow. Like people call us Crow, but we call ourselves Ipsalaga, and it literally translates to as children of the large-beaked bird or children of the raven. And I don't really know the whole lot of the history, but I think a lot of us at least know that corvids are extremely intelligent, right? And I think my ancestors tried to emulate that intelligence within the birds because they're so smart and they work together. They have like all these things that they do, like they're like 4-year-old intelligence, I think some studies say. And that's a clan, I guess, within the story. But within our people, there are 2 distinct groups of crows. There's the mountain crows and the rivers crows. And then those are divided into clans. We have 7 or 8 clans, like within our tribe. So I'm a mountain crow, and I'm from the Big Lodge clan. And it was really cool for me also to see to think about the crow in the book versus my crow people, and there isn't a whole lot of similarity other than the crowness, like that, the crow, at least I didn't see it, like, because for example, the carrion crow, the people, the clan, they wear all black. Now I wear all black just because like I'm an artist, but crows traditionally, we don't wear black unless we're in mourning, and it's only the women who would wear
Crows in the book
all
are
black.
in mourning. The clan is
Yeah.
in mourning
Yeah.
because they lost power, so they wear all black.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, other than that, but it's like I feel like then that's a constant mourning. Whereas crows, we have a mourning period, and then we like get out of it. So there's a little bit of that, the crowness. Like there's some like relations between my people and the people of the book, but for the most part, I felt like it wasn't a lot of my crow people in there. I didn't think like she was taking from my people, but I could see how like just how I think about the actual bird, the crow, and how I, a lot of us, at least, we really like them. They're so smart. They're powerful together.
I live in New York. I don't like
And
birds, but yes.
so one of the things with our clan system, though, I think that can kind of be like crows is so like there's a word and it translates to as driftwood lodges, and that's when there's a riverbank and all this driftwood lodges together, and it becomes a stronger sort of entity, and it's harder to get rid of. And that's how we view our clan system, as one single branch that comes together to make the whole stronger.
Hmm. The next question I actually ask about is the movement of the carrion crow similar to any other decolonization movement? And to go back to the first question we asked, I think the structure of carrion crow in this novel definitely made me think about, with regards to respectability politics, how sort of quick we want to say because someone uses violence that they are in the wrong. But obviously, when we get further into the storyline, are the carrion crow people wrong for wanting to net justice from the Night of Knives, where they took the biggest loss? Like they suffered the most, so all the clans could come together and be under the Sky Maid. And so why wouldn't there be some resentment left within the people about the loss that they suffered, especially when capitalism seems to also be a operating system because it's a hierarchy within the Sky Maid clan based on who has proximity to the center where the Sky Maid live. So like the Golden Eagle clan and some of the other clans, because of their close proximity to the Sun Rock, have a higher esteem. And the Carrion Crow has always kind of been like, well, they literally are the black bird of all the seven clans. And so, when you understand what it means, even, they are not the most oppressed within this novel, but when you understand what it means to live under any form of oppression, it's like, are they wrong for wanting to get justice if they took the biggest loss?
Yeah, no, I don't think they're wrong. I mean, I'm like the whole time when I think about what I was reading about the Night of Knives and how they just kind of slaughtered them, I'm like, I want them to have the justice. And later, there was a question about Okoa's justice, like his version of justice, which I kind of made the assumption of what that justice was, which was like, like restitution sort of justice.
Mm.
But in my head, I think, well, they tried to kill us and they didn't kill us, and so I want that sort of justice as well, like to take something from them. And throughout our history as Crow people, there have been moments where non-natives have tried to wipe us out, but then also other natives have tried to wipe us out.
Mm-hmm.
But then later on, we find peace with those other tribes, even though they were bent on killing us. I think might be just the nature of warfare with Plains people in particular.
Well, I love that this novel takes
Yeah.
place firmly in like an indigenous landscape, and there's not like a European colonizer that comes in and is the villain, because it really does make us think. I think, as a lot of oppressed people, we tend to want to look at our ancestors as like pure and quiet, peaceful, matriarchal often people, and it's like, we had our own shit that was going on, and war is a
Yeah.
part of culture, like, right, war is a part of the way people move in any system. And so this idea that we always paint our it definitely makes us interrogate this idea that we always just want to paint our ancestors as peaceful people. And I can actually read the
Yeah.
quote because it's in the syllabus from Okoa. It says, consider the following quotes regarding Okoa's perspective on the Night of Knives and the cultist response. This is from chapter 18, page 207. We will have our justice, he said quietly. He wasn't sure how or when, but the Sky Maid would answer for the complicity, and the celestial tower would be made to bend. Maybe not by him, but surely his children or their children. He had no doubt that it would happen. It was justice, and justice always prevailed. And that.
Yeah. I was just going to say something about him in particular versus the other people that in the Odo say, or what is that group, that cult.
Yeah, we're all kind of having
Odysseia.
a hard time pronouncing all these names. The
Yeah, I mean the audiobook helped, but
Odoha, yeah.
Otaha, yeah. And I think about, like how he is like a lord and he has a lot to lose. And so he like passes the buck to his children, like his grandchildren. Like, I can't do it, but maybe my grandchildren will. Whereas these people who, that are the cult, they don't have as much as he does.
Mm-hmm.
They have less to lose and they have more to gain, whereas he has, more to lose and less to gain. And so there were times when I I like him, but then times like that where I didn't really like Okoa, where he's just like
He's
kind of
benefited big with his
complacent.
accumulated power.
Yeah, and so yeah, and that's like the kind of the religious thing that was kind of talked about in some other questions. Like he has this power, and so he's like, well, I'm good, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really going to help you guys as much. And I thought that was I thought that was kind of weak.
But it's something
Of
that we
him.
see parallel in our own reality, right? Like there's so many
Mhm.
conversations that I can think of that talk about as soon as somebody in whatever structure or system accumulates power and prestige, they don't want to dismantle that system even if they believe that it should be dismantled. Then they'll start, I want reform, and it becomes like what, neoliberal, instead of, they de-radicalize the movement because they want to hold on to the material goods that they've accumulated through this privilege and access. And you see it within the Black community. I'm sure you see it within various groups within the Indigenous people of America. So constantly
Yeah.
people ascend to the top, and then it's like, oh, let's go sit down with Trump, and you're like, that's, yeah, no.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. No, I know like some of my people, like, like the Crows, like our tribal chairman, he was very much a Trump supporter. His cabinet were very much Trump supporters because he believed that. So a lot of where our wealth, our capital came from recently was from coal. And so as the coal has gone down, he thought, oh, he's going to bring coal back and he's going to make us rich again, which, like I'm all for, renewable fuels and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But and so yeah, I can totally see like he was the chairman. He like had a lot to lose, and so he tried to stay in power. And yeah, that happens in
That was his
so
part.
many tribes.
Yeah. So the next quote from
Yeah.
page 210
Mm-hmm.
is, Okoa wanted justice for his clan, but joining with the cultists was not the way. And this is, I think, the quote you're talking about. They were fanatics, men and women convinced if they only prayed hard enough, they would raise a god who had been dead for 1,000 years. If he had learned anything at Hakoa, it was that justice came through the actions of humans holding wrongdoers to account, not through some vague divine retribution, and certainly not through violence. No war was not the answer. But to use the shield to restrain their own people, as Essa suggested, he didn't condone that either. It felt like the kind of betrayal that a body like Carrion Crow would not recover from. And so the question that asks is, what is the best response to a situation such as the Night of Knives in a large number of people from a particular demographic you identify with who are heinously killed in a genocide? Could you draw comparisons to the responses of the Odaha to any past or current political movements? And I would say yes, this connects to any decolonization movement. There's a podcast that I really like called Revolutions, and it goes over like the revolutions of Colombia, Venezuela, Mexico, Russia, France, and Haiti. And Haiti was the one episode season I listened to all the way through, and I'm always referencing it because it's a really boring history podcast, but he did such a good job of breaking down like the different cultural movements that agitate us towards a revolution, and how different interests come in and undermine the ability for the most radical movement to succeed. Again, because you get this acclamation of power by people that become like the head influencers, and then you have the state. And in Haiti's instance, it was France, that's always going to come in and try to sway a certain class of people to protect their goods. And so, like, particularly, what is the name of the school he went to? Was it, I just said it here, it's something with the H.
Hokaea.
Yeah,
Yeah, Hokaea.
kind of reminded me of like the Democratic Party, like the Democrats United States. I don't know. I was like, this is giving me Hillary Clinton vibes. I don't know. Like this sort of, we have to approach it from this way, and we have to have this long
Yeah.
game investment, which doesn't feel wrong, but does feel wrong.
Yeah. No, I'm, my one of my best friends is Haitian, and I've only recently learned about like how they kind of overthrew France, and it was I did because I didn't know, even though it's close, Haiti's close to the United States, but I didn't know. So it was nice to learn about that, like other people, that kind of stuff. Um, so the whole, like, I'm trying to figure out, my pages are.
Oh, the quote that I is on page 29 of the syllabus.
Oh, okay, here he goes. Okay. Yeah, again, like I think totally the whole like he didn't want to, he had so much to lose, and he just like I'm good, you guys, but they didn't. And I don't know, like I don't know if he lost anyone in the Night of Knives. Like I don't remember if they talked about that, like if he had any direct loss. And so it was just something like, oh, that happened to my people, that's terrible. And but it didn't affect him directly. I don't know. um
Or maybe
I
even
don't want to talk too much.
maybe even the
Hmm?
power that his family accumulated, even if he did have direct
Oh yeah.
descendants lost in the Night of Knives, because they had accumulated so much power within the current system, it put more distance between him. Versus, imagine a person who doesn't accumulate any power in the new system and also has the memories of the loss that they took. He's going to
Yeah.
process it differently because he has privileges that a lot of the people of the Odaha don't have.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the people, even though they're carrion crow, but if they're not, or no, not even. I'm trying to remember how that worked. How some of the people, like the people who took care of his crow, like they normally wouldn't be allowed to live up with them. They had to go back to like basically what, the slums, or wherever, the maw, wherever
Yeah, the
they're
law.
from, and so they had to like, yeah, like laborers, and they kept them down. Like like a lot of Americans probably keep down people of color who are like the maids, and the vegetable pickers, which is not right. But and yeah, that total parallel, I could see it in there, is how he is like the same, yeah, totally the same kind of people as the person who took care of his crow, but yeah, they were totally on different levels, socially, their ranks. And so, yeah, so like I'm like, that was cool that he went to a war school, and he was like a warrior, and rode a crow. But at the same time, I would lose, not respect for him, but I would lose esteem for who he was as a person.
Yeah, because he was feeding into a system. He was resenting a system, but also profiting from a
Yeah.
system he supposedly resented. We're going to move on to page
Yeah.
30 of the syllabus and
Oh,
get into Xyla.
okay.
And the quote is,
Shiala.
oh, Giala. Is that how they say it in the,
Well,
I
that's the
did
book.
not
Yeah.
high school level.
Shiala.
Giala.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you for the
Shiala. I know. Yeah. No worries.
So it's
I,
quote from,
I said Ziala too when I read it.
yeah, I read the quote in from page
Okay.
251, which is, people like us are always hated until they need us. Isn't that always the way? How does the sentiment Giala expresses mirror your own lived experience? How might this statement apply or parallel the experiences of other oppressed peoples and marginalized identities?
Yeah, I think it could kind of go back to that whole, um, like Hispanic people who pick like fruits and stuff, like
Migrant
not like,
workers, yeah.
white Americans. Yeah, migrant workers. Yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot that term. But yes, like how like Americans rely on that, because it's hard work. It's like really hard work, right?
Even
Like
mass.
I remember a few years ago, yeah, reading a story about like, oh yeah, we'll hire you, and like like a white guy from Maryland went, I'll try it, and he like lasted a day. And yeah, I know that's what I thought about when I saw the question, is something like that, is even as mundane as labor, um, like that. But then there's other things too, of like environmentalism, and how a lot of people are coming back to a little bit of native stuff, like how we took care of the land. Like I'm in California right now, and there's a lot of wildfires, and I'm learning a lot about how native people before colonization, how they took care of the land, and how they would do prescribed burns, and they would burn out invasive species, and how they really took care of the land. And I know like a lot of non-native people now are looking to those sort of practices to try and take up some of those to protect their homes, their $1 million properties. And whereas at the beginning of California, the governor was like to everyone, like, if you see an Indian, kill them, right? That was how it was treated. Like, it was a literal attempted genocide in California, like, which is sad. But they survived. There's like 150 tribes here in California, which is great. And I'm learning a lot about them and getting to know a lot of the tribal members here. But yeah, like 150 years ago is when California was made. Like, that was the mandate from the governor. If you see an Indian, kill him. And now some of these people are like, hey, we know you took care of the land so it wouldn't burn everything. What can we do? And that's something that I see as a Native person, at least here in California right now.
Yeah, I did a climate change event with not the United Nations, with the Ford Foundation, and we actually went to indigenous land in Northern California, and they talked about the fire burnings and how their ancestral technology, they were trying to get the state to employ it more.
Yeah.
But it was interesting, like, who from the tribe was getting access to the state politics, because I was like, these people look rather white.
Yeah, I mean, that's how we, that's a hard thing to do, is like, you look white, but you're Native, you grew up Native, like, that's a thing, that's like a season of podcasts in itself of like the different shades of Indigenous people in the United States, from people who are like look black to people who look white, or like me. I recognize that I have sort of a stereotypical Indigenous look because I'm from the plains, and that's how movies portray us as tall, thin, long-haired, high cheekbones. And I know I have that, but there's all these different shades of things within our Indigenous people.
Yeah. All right, we're going to move on to the
Okay.
32 in the syllabus and the quote from 259, because you mentioned the mall earlier with the labor workers. Toba did not possess a civil police force, only individual clan militias, makeshift jail cells meant for temporary use. The most common punishments among the tight knit Sky Maid clans were banishment, and for far lesser crimes, a system of restitution to make the injured party whole. Things were different in the mall, where crime bosses ruled the streets, but the system even there worked much the same: restitution, banishment, and for the truly horrendous, a quick and merciful death. Compare the justice system in Toba to Quayakola's, refer back to chapter 2, and Shila's experience in jail while in Kukola. I know I'm mispronouncing that. Sorry, y'all. Is there an existing justice system in the world today you can think of that fits this description? Or do you know of any movements seeking to develop a system of restitution like that of Toba's? We are getting into the territory of abolition.
Yeah, like, it's hard for me to think about, like, I don't know of an existing justice system like that, or any kind of movements, but there were some tribes who did sort of a restitution thing. The Lakota, the Sioux in South Dakota. So I was talking about this with my partner, and how she brought up Crow Dog. Like, he was a, I forget what band of the Lakota he was, but he killed another man. And so this was in the 1880s, I believe. So there was like transitioning to the reservation sort of life, and where we weren't, the natives weren't put on the reservation yet. And I'm probably missing some parts, but the basic part was he killed someone. The people kind of came together and they said, well, you killed this man, now you have to pay his family restitution. Like, you have to make it right. That was sort of the justice. And so that's how they did it. And what happened was the Indian agent that was kind of in charge of them was like, whoa, what's going on? No, you can't do that. You killed a man. You have to you have to hang, because that's what we do to people who kill people. Right. And so they tried him, and for some reason the court actually, it was the first case where an Indian was put on trial for killing another Indian, and he was set free. He was sort of acquitted. So the tribal people had their way of doing things, but it didn't jive with the American system since then. And so now, because of that, I forget what it was called, but they now put, like, there was originally 7 crimes that if it was committed by a Native person on another Native person on a reservation, it now is in the jurisdiction of the United States government. It's now 15, and I don't know what those all are, but there's like murder and rape, right? And I'm not an expert on anything like that, but I know I have a sense that like, if another Native person were to rape another Native person, it goes to the FBI. But there's not enough agents, like cops or whatever from them to like take care of it. So it gets kind of like swept under the rug. So then rape is prevalent on reservations. Whereas maybe if there was a restitution sort of thing, a process that we had hundreds of years ago, that would have taken care of. And so there would be less of those kind of crimes because, someone does something like, well, I'm probably going to get away with it just because the tribal police can't do anything about this crime that this person committed. So there's less a chance for me to get prosecuted, like murder is like one that they really like crack down on, but there's like a bunch of others that just Native police, Native tribal court systems, they're not allowed to handle because of this law that like says that we can't govern ourselves by the United States, whereas we can.
Right? Because then you kind of are put in the position where you want to petition the state as in the United States government to do a better job, but it's also the state that's taking so much. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's the state that does not provide equity and access, and kind of exacerbates why crime might even happen on tribal lands. And I thought what was interesting in the book was the Sky made kind of get close to what this idea of like community policing is, but they've gotten so far away from their traditions and even their heritage that they haven't really invested fully in this system of community. And so, like, oh, it's restitution or we just kick you out. Like, it's like one extreme or the other, and they haven't really thought through kind of what are the lives of the people that live in the community, and what things need to be taken care of to keep everyone safe and provided with a certain amount of equity and access. And then on the other side, you go back to the Coca-Cola, where private wealth is really held in abundant, with individuals having abundant wealth amongst people that don't have, that are disadvantaged. And then you have a jail system because, jail is built around the idea of private property and protecting your private property. And there is now private property to be protected from the lower class people. So you get something that is a lot similar to like the American penal code. But as like someone who identifies as an abolitionist, I think the Sky Maid clan is almost there, but their own sort of imperialistic interests keep them from really caring about the actual community. And if anybody had the best system, it seemed like the Mao had the best system, to run by, because they actually considered the people that were there. It just sucks because, again, your restitution wasn't necessarily going to the person you harmed. Your restitution is going to the crime bosses.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me think a little bit about the mafia, the mob, how when they got rid of, like, there was less petty crime and less violent crime in those neighborhoods when it was sort of controlled by the mob, maybe in, different big cities, Chicago, New York City, Providence. Like, I lived in Providence for a year, and how they talked about how they would run their city. Like, there was less petty crime and stuff like that. But then when they came and took them out, like the bosses, then it rose because there was no one to protect the common people, because it's not the police's job to protect the common people. They're like, they write tickets and they, harass us people of color. But yeah, and that was how I thought I saw it, as that was sort of my modern parallel was the bosses, or literally the bosses in the Mao were the mob bosses. They kept the peace in a way that the cops, or the cops or whatever couldn't, the clan militias couldn't do it in the Sky Maid.
Who was your favorite character in the book?
My favorite character, I didn't even think about that, but if I think back, I think I like Shiala a lot. I think I think she was my favorite character. Yeah, she was my favorite character. and I'm trying to think of why, but yeah, that she was like independent, right? She was strong and she had like some power. And yeah, I like that. I like books now, like science fiction books where, women are not like subservient to men, where they're their own power. Cause like, obviously I grew up with really strong women, and, strong men. So like, I really have a respect for that. And so like, yeah, I think Shiala was mine. My favorite. Plus, she's not trying to be Tovin or Quickholen. Like she's not like sort of, because they're both like colonizer vibes, right? Quickhola and Tova. And she's like, I gotta kind of live here among you, but I'm still gonna be Teak. I'm gonna be who I am. I'm not trying to be, I'm not trying to assimilate into you, into that. And so I really like that.
She was really badass. Was there any character that really got an emotional reaction out of you, like someone who maybe you didn't like, but like
Who I didn't like? I mean, obviously, like the I really thought that High Priestess Abba was going to be more intellectual than she was, but she wasn't. I don't want to like say too much, but yeah, she was like, I really thought she was going to be like
more cunning,
yeah, like Iago kind of cunning, like from Shakespeare, but wasn't.
or
And I don't know, there just
Varys from
wasn't.
Game of Thrones, the knower of secrets.
Yes, I thought. Yes, I thought it was going to be more like that, and then it wasn't. And in the beginning, like, so I don't think they tell in the book, so I don't think I'm going to give anything away of how, like, when Okoa's mom, the matron of the Crow, died. Like, I'm like, it wasn't a no, not that, when there was the assassination attempt on the bridge, and they're like, it's a crow. Like the crow did it, and I'm like, I don't really think it is. Like it seems like, but they don't ever tell you who it was, and
it's supposed to be
at least concretely.
So I imagine we get to this in the next book.
Yeah, which I'm looking forward to, because like I have like predictions like that seem like really obvious to me in my head, and I don't want to like talk about it like to ruin anyone else's experience with it until they've read it. But yeah, I had things about like who's in charge really, and then I got to the end of the book, and now I'm like having different thoughts and ideas of who's behind, who's pulling the strings, who is like Varys and Iago and like those cunning villains, which is really cool. Like I like that. But yeah, it kind of like, I thought it was going to be her, but then it wasn't Abba, or she's not. Anyways.
You read this along with your wife. Did she kind of have similar opinions about as you with the book?
I think so. Yeah. We talk about it, and we just finished it last night. Like, because I was reading it slowly, and she was like, she listened to it, and I read it, and she this morning when we were going through the questions together, just to like throw it back and forth. She thought Sky Maid was MAID, because she didn't read the book at all, right? Mm-hmm. So she just listened to it. Because I kind of get that, like Sky Maids, like a housekeeper maid, but it's true, yeah. That's kind of that's how she had it in her head. But it's Sky, obviously if you read the book, you read the word maid, like made by this guy. But yeah, so we've read or listened to a couple of Rebecca Roanhorse's other books, the Fifth World series, not the Fifth World, that's N.K. Jemisin, isn't it? The one with Trail of Lightning, and then the sequel to that. So yeah, like, so we were like, we want that trilogy to end because it's left, and like there's one book left, and so we want to listen to that one. And then I listened to her children's book with my children, actually, on a car ride. So that one too, I forget what that one was called, but that was good. My kids really like that one. So
yeah,
so we're fans of Rebecca Roanhorse.
This is my first Rebecca Roanhorse book that I read, and Charlie, who did part 1 with us, was talking about some of the Trail of Lightning, Storm of Locusts, Race to the Sun. Yeah. Are some of the other books that Rebecca has, and how much she's just loved her writing overall. But like, I'm stuck on this series now. I'm ready for like the next in the series to come out, because this really took me for a journey.
It did, yeah. I read Rebecca Roan. I read her Star Wars book too, and it was okay. You know, it was fine. But these ones are better. You know, I don't know. And
Yeah.
I like Star Wars. I'm a Star Wars fan, but it was okay. There was nothing bad about it, but I was whelmed. You know, I
Yeah.
was whelmed
No, this is
with
this
it.
got 5 out of 5 for me. Like
Yeah,
I got a
yeah.
little daunted by how thick the book was, but I got through it so quick. And I'm not a really fast reader, and the storyline just kind of carried it. Like I really wanted to know what happened, on the convergence, and so I had to get to the convergence.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna read it, but I listened to it last night how it ended. I was like, whoa! I
Yeah,
was like, I mean, I don't want to even
spoil
do any like
anything,
kind
right?
of spoiler alert,
Some
but it was good.
some people were a little disappointed with the ending. They said like the story was so climactic, and then kind of ended on a suspense.
Well, that's just the nature of series, trilogies or however many books this is going to be. It's like you can't, like it has to like prepare you or make you want to have the next one. So
All right, well, we're gonna close out here. This was a great discussion.
okay,
Yeah, we
okay,
actually got through all the
yeah.
questions. This was a shorter section.
Oh, okay.
We don't have to stretch it to an
It's fine.
hour. We don't have to stretch it out.
Okay,
Okay. But
sure. I mean, yeah, whatever works for you.
thank you for joining us. As always, everyone, you can go to smartbrowngirl.com, purchase the syllabus. It's very thorough. The questions are very introspective. They will definitely make you think about what you're reading. And thank you to Adam Sings in the Timber for joining us and bringing so much insight to the discussion. Definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Close out here, guys. Bye.
Okay.